What is going on, Cowboys Nation? Welcome back to the channel. And today we are talking about something that has me genuinely excited for this franchise. The Dallas Cowboys have been working around the clock trying to find solutions to help fix that god-awful defense from a year ago. I mean, that defense was terrible. There is no sugarcoating it. It was bad. But the front office has been laying down the foundation for the defensive staff, and they started by hiring Christian Parker, who is a young up-and-rising defensive coordinator. And now today, they added a guy from the college ranks that I think Dallas Cowboys fans are going to be very excited about. So let us talk about it and break down why this matters. The Dallas Cowboys have officially hired Scott Simons to be their interior linebacker coach, which is a position we desperately need help with. We know we need some serious upgrades when it comes to our linebackers. Last year, we were supposed to have the linebacker guru on staff, but it really did not work out in our favor at all. The defense was a mess, and the linebacker play was a huge part of that problem. But Scott Simons is coming in from SMU, and if you have been paying attention to college football, you know exactly why this is a big deal. Now you guys know I am an ACC guy, so I am very familiar with SMU and what they were doing this past season. They had a guy last year in Elijah Roberts who I really liked coming out of the draft. I forget exactly where he ended up going because once my guys get drafted, I kind of lose track of where they land. But Elijah Roberts was a phenomenal player for the SMU Mustangs last year on defense, and he was coached by Scott Simons. That connection matters because it shows what kind of development and production Simons can get out of his players. When you look at the SMU defense this past year, the numbers speak for themselves. They were top 20 in 4 different defensive categories and top 30 in a couple more. That is not an accident. That is coaching. That is scheme. That is player development. And now all of that is coming to Dallas. Simons himself talked about his philosophy in recent interviews, and I want to share what he said because I think it tells you exactly what kind of coach he is. He said that at the end of the day, players make plays, and that is where it starts. But he emphasized that it is his job to put those players in position to make those plays. He talked about the importance of evaluating talent and finding places for guys on the current roster to fit into his scheme. But what really stood out to me was when he talked about being flexible and adapting to what you have. He said, when you come into a new job, you have to adapt a little bit to what you have. You are going to have strengths in some areas and areas that need improvement. Finding guys that can fit those spots and fill those roles is huge. That mentality right there is refreshing. That is not a rigid coach who is going to force a square peg into a round hole. That is a coach who understands you have to work with your personnel and maximize what you have while developing what you need. That is exactly what the Cowboys defense needs right now. Now, here is what I am seeing as a clear trend with these hires. And I think it is important to point out, Cowboys Nation, we know for a fact that last year's hire in Matt Eberflus was not a Brian Schottenheimer pick. Jerry, you tried it. Jerry tried to put Matt Eberflus on Brian Schottenheimer's tab, but clearly that was not the case. You exposed yourself with that one. But when it comes to the defensive staff that Brian Schottenheimer and the Dallas Cowboys are putting together, now it seems like a bunch of little shotties. It seems like a bunch of young uprising candidates who really have not gotten the opportunity to shine in the spotlight yet. And that means they are going to be hungry for success. This is pretty much exactly what we did last year on the offensive side of the ball. We added Brian Schottenheimer as the head coach. We added Clayton Adams, who was relatively unknown at the time. Then we went to the college ranks and added Junior Adams and Connor Riley. We are doing the exact same thing defensively now, and I think that is a great thing. I think that approach works. I just felt like last year under Matt Eberflus, everything was stale. It just stank. You ever go to someone's house and it just smells old? Like that musty old smell that hits you when you walk in the door? That is how our defensive side of the ball felt last year under Matt Eberflus. It was stale. It was predictable. It was lifeless. There was no energy. There was no creativity. It was just going through the motions. So now the defensive players are going to get some excitement. They are going to get some youth. They are going to get some coaches that they can actually relate to and build their own identity with. That matters more than people realize. When players connect with their coaches and believe in the system, you see it show up on the field. We saw it happen on offense last year, and now we are setting up for the same thing to happen on defense. When it comes to Scott Simons specifically, there is one thing that stands out above everything else. SMU was tops in turnovers last year. Takeaways, takeaways, takeaways. That is what he brings to the table. So you might need to pencil in some ball hawks during this draft season. The Cowboys are going to need players who can create turnovers because that is clearly going to be a point of emphasis under this new staff. SMU was not just good at turnovers in general. They were tops in interceptions specifically. They were excellent in red zone defense. They ran a 4-2-5 scheme, which is a little bit of a hybrid look with some mixed coverages on the back end. Overall, it sounds like the Dallas Cowboys defense under Christian Parker is going to be a multiple front with coaches that bring youth and energy. But the number one objective is going to be takeaways. That has to be the priority. This is something I always preach on this channel. What is the formula for success in the NFL? Turnover margin. That means we cannot turn the ball over on offense, and if we can force turnovers on defense, we are going to be right in the thick of things every single week. You look at the teams that win championships, and they almost always have a positive turnover margin. It is not a coincidence. It is a fundamental truth of football. I feel like Brian Schottenheimer is starting to get back to that mentality across the entire team. The offensive side cleaned up the turnovers last year, and now we are bringing in defensive coaches who specialize in creating takeaways. That is how you build a complete football team. Scott Simons was nominated for several awards at the college level last year. SMU made the college football playoffs, so they have real credibility. They were not just beating up on bad teams. They competed at the highest level of college football, and their defense was a huge reason why. This is a guy who a lot of college programs were actually pursuing to potentially become their head coach. But instead, he decided to jump from the college ranks to the NFL and join the biggest organization in the world in the Dallas Cowboys. That says something about where this franchise is headed. I think Dallas Cowboys fans can be legitimately excited about this hire. Now, of course, we have to see how it all unfolds on the field. We have to be patient and watch the process play out. But I can say this with confidence. It feels better than it did last year. It just feels different. It feels like there is a real plan in place. Last year's hires on the defensive side kind of flew under the radar for me because Shoddy was over there killing it with the offensive side of the ball. The offense was so exciting that we did not pay as much attention to the warning signs on defense. But defensively this year, it seems like they are doing the right thing. They are being intentional about who they are bringing in. Now, you probably want to give Jerry some credit for this, but I highly doubt that is warranted. You know what I am saying? Jerry is probably sitting back watching this unfold because he has no choice. Jerry Jones has no choice but to listen to Brian Schottenheimer this year because he messed up last year. He messed up with the Eberflus hire, and by messing up last year, he actually had to pay some money when things fell apart. So I know Jerry had to go sit in the corner and let Shoddy cook. And right now it feels like Brian Schottenheimer is cooking. The defensive staff is almost complete. But there is still a nugget out there that we have not heard much about, and that is Zach Orr, the former defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens. If you can add him to this staff, man, oh man, look out. Then we can really start to build something special and add the right personnel, knowing this coaching staff can develop and coach up this defense. Now, I know a lot of people are focused on the offense. Offense, offense, offense. High octane, do not trade George Pickens. Do not trade George Pickens. I get that. I understand that perspective, but I do not just want an okay defense. That is a narrative that I really do not like. People are out here saying, hey, Tuck, the offense will be so explosive with CD and George Pickens that we just need our defense to be okay. No. That is not how I think about this. I am giving y'all your George Pickens stuff because you never take a tablet away from a toddler. I learned that lesson the hard way. All you parents know what I am talking about. Sometimes you just let them have their tablet at dinner so you can enjoy a peaceful meal. Just let them watch Paw Patrol and be quiet. So the offense is going to keep George Pickens and pay him his money. Fine. But I do not want our defense to just be okay. I want our defense to be dominant because when you get into the thick of things at the end of the year, you are going to need your defense to hold up, especially in the playoffs when everything tightens up and the margin for error shrinks. You cannot rely on just outscoring people in January. So I do not want our defense to be ranked 21st while our offense is second or third. I want our defense to be top 10 and our offense to be top 3. Why not go for it all? Why not build a complete team? And I think we can get there if we add the proper personnel along with the coaching staff that we currently have in-house. If you are a Dallas Cowboys fan, you have to be excited right now. You have to be excited to sit back and watch this unfold. Now, there are talks about moves in the draft. I saw a proposed trade scenario where maybe we trade with the Cleveland Browns to get the 6th pick so we can draft Caleb DS. And here is why that connects to Scott Simons. Scott Simons coached safeties at SMU. He was a defensive coordinator and safeties coach. Christian Parker is a cornerback and safety guy as well. Now, I do not want to poo-poo on any parades, but if we can actually add some quality safeties to this roster, I think it could give the Dallas Cowboys defense a huge boost. It has been so long since we had a cornerstone piece at the safety position. I mean, Darren Woodson, who should be in the Hall of Fame, by the way. I was not really a huge fan of Roy Williams. We had Jeff Heath for a while, but we really have not had the guy at safety in a long time. I would love to have a true difference maker at that position. And when I talk about Caleb DS, he is definitely that guy. If you have him, he would change life in Dallas. He would completely transform the back end of this defense. If we are going to hold on to George Pickens and pay him $40 million, then we have to must draft dogs, not just players. Dogs. Guys that can change things just like that. Caleb DS would be exactly that kind of player. Maybe Scott Simons and Christian Parker will be banging on the desk, telling the front office to go get that guy. Time will tell. But Simons is going to be our interior linebacker coach, and we really do not have any middle linebackers on the roster right now. So it will be interesting to see how that all unfolds with personnel moves. But I really like what the Dallas Cowboys are doing with this hire in Scott Simons. We will have to sit back and wait and see how it all comes together. There are still some pieces left to add to this staff. If you love draft content and Cowboys content, you are definitely in the right spot on this channel. Make sure you subscribe if you have not already. Hit that like button, and I will catch you in the next video. But as of right now, the Dallas Cowboys and their defensive staff are cooking up something special. Peace.